It is the Behind the Book Sports Betting Series, once again live from the Mirage. Gill Alexander from the Vegas Stats and Information Network. Jay Rude, Vice President, MGM Resorts International, racing sports, back where you belong, sir.
Back in the saddle after a week on the East Coast.
Yes, Jeff Stone back from the Mirage did very well in your stead, but we're happy to have you here.
You guys did a great job, and I like the no glasses this time around. You're looking good,
Thank you, sir. Can't see a lick.
You can't see a lick. Yeah, join the club, yeah.
But we can talk pro football, whether I can see or not. Pro football, the big game, of course, Rams hosting the Saints this weekend. We will get to that, but it is rivalry week in college football,
yes,
Jay.
Is.
It really is. Michigan and Ohio State, Auburn and Alabama in the Iron Bowl, and then the Apple Cup, Washington and Wazoo. We'll talk about all of that, and of course, the Ask the Pro segment as well.
Yeah, good questions this week.
Let's do it. Behind the Book, brought to you by the Play MGM app, live from the Mirage. Behind the Book Sports Betting Series, that's what we do each and every week. We're doing it live from the Mirage. Gill Alexander from VSiN, Jay Rude from MGM Resorts International, the Vice President of MGM Resorts International. Rivalry week, Jay. Ohio State at Michigan. Ohio State headed to the Big Ten Championship to take on Wisconsin. A faint hope still of a college football playoff appearance. I know, faint, but a possibility. I do a show at VSiN called Guessing Lines. It's about the NFL, where I try to guess lines before I know them coming into a subsequent week. Off air, I was asked, what would you make the Ohio State-Michigan line? I thought about it. I said, Ohio State -6. And the bookmaker that I was talking about said, I like your number better, but guess what? It's 11.5.
11.5.
What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, with the injury to the quarterback at Michigan, that could be a little bit of a factor here too, but 11.5 is pretty high. But, when Ohio State is in these kind of positions, this is where the betting public backs them, really strong. When they have an opportunity to claw their way back into the picture, and to schvutza somebody, they're going to do it. So 11.5 is probably, we're going to probably see some sharp money come in here before we get to this game. But when it comes kickoff time, we're going to see Ohio State backers lining up to bet this.
I have an additional theory as well. Ohio State, with that faint hope of getting to the college football playoff, style actually matters.
Oh, absolutely.
And so the hope of a blowout, if Ohio State's going to win this, it serves them well to win by a bunch. And I'm wondering if that's kind of baked into the number as well, perhaps.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we think the public is going to, back a team that looks to perform really well to get themselves back into the picture.
Yeah. Ohio State, Michigan.
We're talking the same language.
We are, though with different words. Early Saturday, rivalry week begins. Ohio State at Michigan. Ohio State by 11.5. The Behind the Book Sports Betting Series for rivalry week in college football. Gill Alexander, Jay Rude. There is no greater rivalry than that of Auburn and Alabama. This rivalry is so bitter that for 40 years they didn't even play it. If your child goes to the other school, sometimes they disown you.
Disown you, yeah.
Meanwhile, there's not been a bigger Auburn-Alabama game than this one here. Alabama, this opened at 4.5. Now it's 4 reduced juice, -4 even at Auburn, the Iron Bowl, with not only, of course, SEC implications, but college football playoff implications as well.
No, absolutely. I mean, if there's, you like to say, the glamorous of regular season is not lost, it's only amplified. And this is one of those games where
I enjoy saying that.
This is a huge game leading into, it's going to dictate the landscape of what's going to happen here in the next, 2 weeks, 6 weeks, whenever the national championship game is done. Great game. Impressed with your pronunciation of a rivalry. You're just showing off now.
Me, not with your pronunciation of pronunciation.
But this is going to be,
Yes.
this is going to be a game where we might be in the envious position of needing Alabama in this particular case, if the Sharps keep thinking that there's a little bit of value here, because they took +4.
Yes.
So we went to -$1.20 on Auburn. So I could almost see this going to 3.5. But will the public money come in on Alabama that hard to offset it? We might be in a great position where, we're offsetting money, but we might be in a really good position if the public suddenly decides to line up on Auburn. I mean, there's worse things in the world than to root for Alabama.
I was going to say, when was the last time you remember that happening where you needed Bama?
Never.
Never, ever. There are some advanced stats that point to Auburn. Alabama, worse than 100th in the nation in terms of adjusted sack rate. Auburn's defense, top 10 in that category as well. You can go on down the line.
Playing Jalen Hurts, though. Come on.
Playing Jalen Hurts. But there's passes, success rate of passes. Alabama not good if they need second and long or third and long yardage. Auburn really good in those situations. So through the prism of some numbers, Auburn should be looked at here, but it is Bama. That's the thing. And they just have a way of...
They find a way to do it.
Yeah, overriding all that. So you may need Bama.
We may need Bama if the Sharp community buys into your stats even deeper now.
Yeah, I like Auburn. Going to grab it while I can at 4 if what Jay's saying is correct, that it may go to 3.5. The Iron Bowl, Auburn and Alabama. Alabama favored by 4. Come on down, bet it right here at the Mirage. It's my favorite segment on Behind the Book. Each and every week, it's Ask the Pro, and today we have a great question. Actually, 2 questions in one. From the Twitterverse. We always love getting questions from Twitter. Jay, you ready?
Yep.
Okay, guys, spill the beans to us. What are the worst bets inexperienced bettors make all the time? And what are some of the best bets that people don't take advantage of often enough? Let's take the first part of that. What are the worst bets people make?
I think you know. It's pretty easy. Parlays. Anytime you start stringing teams together where you have to have 2 or 3, 4, 5, 10 teams, all hit for you to cash. If one goes down, the whole thing goes down. Those are tough. Those are high percentage hold kind of wagers for us, but they do hit. We had 2 11-teamers hit this last weekend. Each paid over $110,000 apiece.
Right, but you see, the thing is, he tells you that story, right? Because that makes the headline. But in fact, negative EV, negative expected value bet. A parlay stringing together 2 or more bets have to hit both for ostensibly what would be a bigger payout, just not a solid wager.
Your vocabulary is impressive today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. On the other hand, what's a great bet that people don't really take advantage of enough of?
I think that's probably yours. I mean, I think you probably see it. I mean, there's prop bets out there that I get picked off on by the pros a lot, and I think you probably see a lot of value in some of these prop bets if you do your homework, because we throw these things up like everybody wants to talk about them during Super Bowl, but realistically, the masses, the majority of the people don't pay a whole lot of attention to them, but there's some big value in there. I mean, it's my opinion, but sometimes a prop will move 40 to 60% of what I originally priced it at.
Mispricing.
Yeah, that's a huge move. And you can either take advantage of a mispricing, or you can take advantage of a scalping situation where you can lay a short price with me and take a bigger, stronger price with somebody else, or vice versa, and put yourself in a position where you're risking very little, if any, to win up.
Maybe even perhaps guaranteeing a win, but no loss whatsoever. I thought you were going to go a different way with that. I thought you were going to say certain 2-team teasers are actually good calls. Maybe you just didn't want to share that with people.
Well, they used to be stronger, but we've sort of caught up with the pricing of certain 2-team teasers in the NFL. Anything 7, 8 range that you can tease down to pick, and if you can combine it with a total that's in the 38 range, that's always a very strong. So you take a 7-point favorite, drop it to pick, and you take a total, drop it to 31, and go over it. That's a pretty strong combination. So we had to price it differently.
The total is breaking news there. Yes, the teasers that you can perhaps ideally tease through key numbers, a 7 and a 3, you're getting the best of that. But the totals, some information you'll only hear here with Jay Rude, Vice President, Race and Sports here at MGM Resorts International. Ask the Pro, we do it each and every week. Happy to answer all of your questions right here on Behind the Book. The Behind the Book Sports Betting Series, Gill Alexander from VSiN, Jay Rude, Vice President of MGM Resorts International here to talk Rivalry Week once again. Now, this game doesn't have national title implications, but it does for the Pac-12. Washington State and Washington, the Huskies, 9-point favorites in this game. Call it 9.5 right now. This opened at 10. It's at 9.5 right now. Seems like a lot to me here. If Washington wins, if UW wins this game, Stanford wins the Pac North and will play USC in the Pac-12 championship. Wazoo with an outright win. They go to play USC in the Pac-12 championship. This seems like a lot of points to me, Jay. In the Apple Cup, 9.5.
It's a lot of points. It's going to be at Seahawk Quest Field, so it'll be a strong home field advantage for Washington. But there are a lot of Wazoo alumni that work in Seattle, so there'll be plenty of Washington State fans here too. So a little bit of lean towards Washington in that regards, but the Sharps agree with you. They took the 10.
Yep.
This could be the last-ditch effort for Washington State quarterback to get invited to New York. And it's the championship of Washington State. So, it's a lot on the line here, a lot on the line.
Bragging rights, if nothing else. The Washington State quarterback that Jay's referring to, obviously, is Luke Falk. A lot of NFL teams looking at him as a potential first-round draft pick, his last chance to shine here. And it's one of those games one would think where Washington, as the game script goes on, they don't want to get Wazoo out there to a big lead because it's going to be tough to catch up with that Mike Leach offense. I will say this, though. The Cougars have given up 39 sacks this year. UW has sacked the opposing quarterbacks 33 times. That bodes well, at least in that prism, for the Huskies.
Yeah.
Washington State, Washington, the latest of all the rivalry games on Saturday in what is a great rivalry week in college football. We promised it. We've got it now. The best game in NFL Week 12, obviously, Jay. It's the Saints at the Rams. The Rams, 2.5-point favorites. Two big-time NFC teams right now. The Saints have won 8 games in a row, a remarkable comeback against the Redskins last week to get their 8th in a row. The Rams do lose to the Vikings last week, and they lose their number 1 wideout, Robert Woods. But the Rams, 2.5-point favorites here. You're going to get the most action on this game, aren't you?
Yeah, because the rest of the schedule is pretty weak. There's only maybe one other interesting game, and I don't even know how interesting. Just to see if the Patriots continue to throttle people like, stepchild. I think the Dolphins are going to next up, and we'll see what happens there. We're going to be needing the Dolphins really, really bad. But this is going to be a game that, is the primetime game, the fun one to watch. Whether the Rams can bounce back with, how they're dinged up and really show that they are a contender, or maybe they're just a sort of a, they needed a change from Fisher, and hey, we're all got amped up, and now they're on the downhill side of it. We don't know. But, New Orleans definitely showed that they're going to be there for the long haul with the comeback win and with the way they've been playing. But this is a game that I gotta believe we're gonna need the Rams really badly.
You are gonna need the Rams.
Yeah.
So New Orleans is the more public of these two teams, then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Just because the stigma that's on the Rams right now, the last few years.
I see.
And then suddenly, Drew Brees looks like Drew Brees and the company of a few years ago when they were whooping everyone's butts, like 56 to 22. It's sort of kind of come back to that. Their defense isn't quite that good again, but this is going to be, I think, a heavily bet game from the public on the Saints.
Rams right now, 2.5-point favorites at home against the Saints. Marquee game in the NFL this week. Will it get to 3? Jay thinks it will not, that it will go the other way, that he'll need the Rams. And by the way, that other game he mentioned, Miami right now catching 16.5 at New England. You think that gets to 17?
Probably, yeah, absolutely. This game has got all the markings of going to one the other way on the Saints. So It's going to be a big move.
Should be fun. A big week, Thanksgiving week in the National Football League. You get a lot of action still Thanksgiving week.
Thursday's a fun day. We sit around, eat pie, and watch football.
Eat pie and watch football. What a great holiday. Behind the Book, NFL Week 12. Come down and bet it at the Mirage or all down the Strip at MGM Resorts properties. Behind the Book for Week 12 in the NFL and college football rivalry week. Gill Alexander, Jay Rude, and of course it's time now for the stats of the week and what Jay will be watching. The stat that I will be looking at, it's all about the Buffalo Bills, Jay. Since Jim Kelly played his last game in 1996, Buffalo has started 17 different quarterbacks. Among those that lined up under center for the Bills, great names. Alex Van Pelt. Yeah. Oh, you remember the Alex Van Pelt era.
AVP.
AVP, that's right. Brian Brom and the great Jeff Toole.
The great Jeff Toole.
The great Jeff Toole.
Future Hall of Famer.
17, well, maybe not. 17 is a magic number for the Bills, and when I say magic, I mean it as a bizarro sort of magic because it has been 17 years since the Bills franchise has made the postseason. That is the longest drought, not only of any NFL team, but of any North American sports franchise. And yet, while in playoff position last week, they arbitrarily decide no more Tyrod Taylor. We're going with Nathan Peterman. 5 picks in the first half. You gotta be kidding me.
Mark up number 18 for him, I think.
Yeah.
I think they're going to struggle to make the playoffs for sure at this point.
Bills
if you can't figure out who's supposed to lead your team week 11 or whatever we're in now, you got really big problems.
And head coach Sean McDermott thinking about going back to Nathan Peterman. The Bills 10-point dogs as we look up at the big board at Kansas
Why
City.
wouldn't you?
I could think of 5 reasons, Jay.
Yeah, right.
You know, just off the top of my head. What are you looking at this
So,
weekend?
this week we're going to be looking at probably, this is about the time of year where the public really starts to put together 2 or 3 teams every week of strong contenders. They hook them into parlays, and we really run the risk of hitting this 3-team parlay week. Like, they're gonna be hitting the Eagles, the Patriots, and then they'll probably loop in 2 or 3 other public teams, but those 2 teams are going to become the key parlay factors. So we're going to have to really keep our eye on the parlay liability going into this week on the really big public teams, because that can roll up quickly. And if we start seeing a couple of teams drawing it, we're going to have to start moving the point spread to make it a little bit more difficult on the public for that. But yeah, I mean, parlay liability this time of year, when the action sort of slows down a little bit, and we start paying 6, 10 to 1, that can be dangerous.
So if the big favorites come through, that's bad for Jay. Last year, November, December, January, NFL got the best of you.
Yeah.
Are we kind of seeing perhaps a hint of that early November
Yeah,
again?
we are. I mean, we're sliding in that, on the heels of what the Patriots just did and the Vikings did. Vikings are becoming a popular team. The Saints, we could easily be in that same mode this week.
All right. Do you want to bet the big favorites? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Week 12 in the NFL, rivalry week in college football, all here for you to bet on, not only at the Mirage, but all up and down the Strip. MGM Resorts for Jay Rude, the Vice President of MGM Resorts International. Vice President, that is. Gill Alexander from VSiN. This is the Behind the Book Sports Betting Series brought to you by Play MGM app. Get the app. Bet on your own in isolation. Avoid the lines. Come on down.
Shoving stuffing in your mouth, making a bet on the app.
That too. Good luck. Week 12 of the National Football League.